I was 10 years old the night I stopped being afraid of storms and started being afraid of people. I grew up in Willow Creek, Minnesota, a small town that was more fields than streets, more silence than sound. Our farmhouse sat at the edge of town, 2 stories of creaking wood, chipped paint, and windows that rattled when the October wind hit just right. If you've ever lived in a place like that, you know the kind of loneliness it carries. The way darkness settles heavier when no one else is around. My name's Ethan Miller, and back then it was just me and my dad, David. My mom had left years earlier, chasing a different life in another state, and it was something we never talked about much. My dad was a truck driver, the kind of man who worked long hauls and came home with calloused hands and tired eyes. He did his best for me. I know that now. But back then, what I remembered most was how often he wasn't home when night came down. Usually that was okay. We had Mrs. Conway, our neighbor from 2 houses down. She was an older widow with white hair always pulled into a bun and a laugh that carried through her porch when she told me stories about her late husband. She babysat me when Dad was on the road. She wasn't family, but in a way, she became the closest thing to a grandmother I'd ever known. The night everything changed, Mrs. Conway wasn't there. She'd fallen earlier that week and broken her hip. Dad told me the ambulance had taken her to the county hospital, and I remember the way his jaw tightened when he said it, like he didn't want me to know how worried he really was. That left him with a choice. He had a delivery, he couldn't miss hours away, and no one to watch me. I still see him kneeling at the doorway of our farmhouse, his big hand resting on my shoulder, his eyes trying to convince me of something we both knew wasn't true. "You'll be fine, champ," he said. "Just a few hours. I'll be back by dawn. Lock the doors. Keep the lights on. You're braver than you think." I nodded, even though my stomach felt like it was tied in knots. That was the last time I saw him until the next morning. And by then, I wasn't the same kid anymore. The storm rolled in faster than the weatherman promised. By 7 o'clock, rain was slapping against the windows so hard it sounded like handfuls of gravel. The trees out back bent in the wind like they might snap. I curled up on the couch with a blanket wrapped around me, cartoons playing low on the TV, a flashlight within arm's reach just in case. I hated storms. The thunder always seemed too personal, like it was aimed right at me. But I kept telling myself what Dad said, braver than you think. The power flickered once, twice, and then it was gone. Just like that, the house sank into blackness, and the cartoon voices died in silence. I clicked on the flashlight, the thin beam shaking with my hand. Suddenly, every sound was sharper. The drip from the kitchen faucet, the scrape of branches against the siding, the groan of the old house shifting in the wind. The storm outside howled like a voice calling my name. That was when the knock came. It was at the back door, sharp and loud, like whoever it was wanted to make sure I couldn't pretend I hadn't heard. My dad's warning echoed in my head. "Don't open the door for anyone." I froze. Then came a woman's voice. "Ethan, sweetie, it's Mrs. Conway. Let me in. It's so cold out here." My heart hammered. Mrs. Conway? That didn't make sense. She was supposed to be in the hospital. "Please, Ethan." The voice pressed softer now, pleading, "Don't make me stay out here alone." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe the neighbor who baked me cookies and told me stories was just on the other side of that door. I raised the flashlight, shining it toward the rain-streaked window, and that's when I saw the shadow. It was tall, too tall, taller than Mrs. Conway could ever be. Fear doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps up from your toes, freezes your knees, and settles heavy in your chest. I couldn't breathe. The shadow outside the window moved slow and deliberate, and the voice came again. "Ethan, sweet boy, don't make me wait." I bolted. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I ran up the stairs 2 at a time, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear the storm. I slammed my bedroom door, locked it, then crawled into the closet, curling myself into the smallest ball I could make. Downstairs, the back door rattled. Hinges groaned. Whoever was outside wasn't knocking anymore. They were trying to get in. I pressed my hand over my mouth, to keep quiet. My flashlight beam shook against the closet wall. The house groaned again, only this time it wasn't the wind. Footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps across the wooden floor below. They were inside. Every board that creaked under their weight made my body flinch tighter. Tears streamed down my cheeks. Dad's words echoed in my head. Braver than you think. But bravery felt impossible when the footsteps climbed the stairs. They stopped outside my room. The door knob rattled. I held my breath until my chest ached, praying, begging, promising anything to whoever was listening. If only that door wouldn't open. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, a new sound broke through the storm. Blaring horns, flashing lights. Red and blue danced across my window. "Ethan," my dad's voice roared from outside. "It's me. Open up." The footsteps moved fast, pounding back down the stairs. I heard the back door slam open. Then nothing but the storm and the sound of my dad's boots pounding against the porch. By the time police officers swarmed the farmhouse, whoever had been inside was gone. No broken locks, no footprints in the mud, no proof except the echo of a voice I couldn't forget. "Are you okay?" my dad asked, scooping me into his arms when I stumbled out of the closet, sobbing. I clung to him, shaking so hard I could barely speak. It wasn't her. It wasn't Mrs. Conway. He looked at me with eyes that were both relieved and guilty, and he nodded like he already knew. For weeks after that night, I couldn't sleep without the flashlight in my hand. Every creak of the farmhouse sent me scrambling under the covers. The storm had passed, but the fear stayed. My dad tried to reassure me, saying sometimes storms made people imagine things, that maybe it was the wind or a trick of the light. But I knew what I heard. I knew the voice that had called itself Mrs. Conway, and I knew the shadow that didn't fit her frame. I never told anyone about the way it said my name, soft and coaxing like it already knew me. As I grew older, I realized storms weren't the scariest part of that night. What haunted me most wasn't the thunder or the darkness or even the footsteps in the hallway. It was the knock on the door I wanted so badly to believe was safe. That night taught me something I've carried with me ever since. Danger doesn't always show up wearing a mask. Sometimes it wears a familiar voice, one you trust enough to open the door for. And that's the part of growing up no one warns you about the moment you learn the world can trick you with kindness. Trust your gut, even when your heart wants to believe otherwise. Because sometimes survival means listening to fear and knowing that not every knock at the door is meant to be answered. If this story sent chills down your spine, you haven't heard the worst of them yet. Subscribe to Nightling, where every knock, whisper, and shadow hides a story you'll never forget. I still remember the autumn of 2009 like it happened yesterday. The air in Brent Hollow had that damp, heavy feel it always carried when summer gave way to falling leaves. When the trees stood half bare and the wind carried the smell of wet earth. I was 9 years old then, living with my mother in a crumbling duplex on Maple Street. The kind of place where paint peeled from the siding and neighbors argued loud enough for the whole street to hear. My mom, Dana, was a nurse at the county hospital, and she worked nights more often than not. Money was tight. So tight that every light bulb we didn't use, every grocery bag we stretched a little longer was noticed. That also meant babysitters. Most of them were the kinds of people you'd expect in a neighborhood like ours. Teenage girls from church saving for their first car, or tired women from down the block who'd watch me while their own kids played in the background. They weren't perfect, but they were safe. Then there was Carla Ray. Carla was 21, older than most of the girls who came around. With dark hair, she bleached in streaks and long nails painted in neon colors. She wore hoop earrings the size of bracelets and had a laugh that sounded half like a dare, and half like she was in on a joke no one else could hear. The first time she came over, she strutted into the house like she owned it, dropping her bag on the couch, popping her gum, and smiling at me like we were co-conspirators. My mom hired her out of desperation. I could see it in her eyes when she introduced us. Dana was exhausted from pulling double shifts, shadows like bruises under her eyes, her nurse's scrubs wrinkled. Carla was cheap, available, and didn't ask questions. At first, I wanted to like her. She told stories about concerts she'd been to, about sneaking into places she wasn't supposed to be, about people she dated who sounded like characters out of a movie. When you're 9, that kind of confidence feels magnetic. She painted her nails at our kitchen table, the smell of polish burning my nose, and told me I could pick a color when my mom wasn't looking. For a while, that was enough to make the nights less lonely. But it didn't stay that way. Sometimes Carla disappeared into the kitchen for long stretches, saying she had to make a call, though the smell of smoke would drift back into the living room. Other times, she'd pace the hallway, mumbling, laughing at things no one had said. Once, when I asked her to heat up dinner, she shoved a bag of chips into my hands and told me not to be such a nag. Then there were the whispers. "You ever hear voices in this house?" She asked me one night, crouching down so close I could see her eyes darting back and forth like she was chasing something invisible. "I swear someone else lives here. You just don't see them." I wanted to tell her to stop, that she was scaring me, but the words stuck in my throat. I curled up on the couch instead, pretending to sleep while her shadow moved across the walls, tall and restless. I didn't tell my mom. At 9, you learn fast which problems your parent can solve and which ones will just make their lives harder. Mom already had too much to carry, so I stayed quiet. Even when Carla's visits began to make me dread the sound of the front door closing behind my mother as she left for work. And then came a day Carla didn't show up at all. It was a Wednesday, gray skies, leaking drizzle that soaked through my shoes as I waited on the school steps. Carla was supposed to pick me up. My classmates had already scattered, parents' cars driving off one after another until I was the only one left sitting there, hugging my backpack like it could keep me warm. Minutes stretched into hours. My stomach growled. Every headlight that passed made me flinch with hope, then sink with disappointment. I imagined Carla strolling up, chewing gum, shrugging like she just overslept. But she never came. By the time my mom's headlights cut, through the rain, it was full dark. She pulled up fast, panic written all over her face. I ran to her and she hugged me so tight it hurt. "Where's Carla?" she demanded, scanning the empty street. She never came. I whispered. That night, Mom was furious. She called Carla's phone over and over, each time hanging up with her jaw clenched tighter. Finally, she slammed the phone down and swore Carla would never step foot in our house again. For a few weeks, life felt steadier. Mom arranged her shifts differently, found an older neighbor to watch me sometimes, and made sure I was never left waiting. I felt safer. I believed her promise until the Friday Carla came back. I spotted her before she saw me leaning against a dented car outside her duplex. Her lipstick was smudged, her smile stretched too wide when her eyes landed on me. "Hey kiddo," she called, waving like nothing had happened. "Miss me?" I froze on the sidewalk. Something about her voice made my skin crawl. My mom said, Yeah, your mom's mad at me, but I got surprises. Hop in. Let's grab some ice cream, just like old times." I hesitated. Every warning my mother had ever given me buzzed in my head. But Carla's tone was light, teasing like an older sister daring me. Against my better judgment, I climbed into the car. That was the night my childhood ended. Carla didn't drive us to the ice cream shop. She took me to a decaying apartment building across town. The hallway stank of mildew, carpet squishing with every step, as if the floorboards had soaked up years of spilled drinks and fights no one cleaned up after. Inside the apartment was worse. Piles of dirty dishes, blinds ripped halfway from the window, clothes strewn across the floor. The smell was sour, heavy like something rotting just out of sight. I sat on a sagging couch, clutching my backpack, while Carla busied herself in the kitchen. At first, I thought maybe she'd really just forgotten the ice cream. Maybe she'd laugh, grab her keys, and take me home. But then a glass shattered. She screamed at no one. Cabinets slammed, her voice swinging from laughter to rage in seconds. "Do you hear them?" she whispered suddenly, crouching in front of me. Her breath reeked of chemicals, her pupils blown wide. "They're in the walls. Don't move." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. I wanted to run, but the door was locked and Carla was between me and escape. Minutes dragged on like hours. A man shouted upstairs. A woman screamed back somewhere. A baby cried. Carla paced the room, muttering, then sat beside me, her hand gripping mine too tight. "It's just us now," she said softly, her smile trembling. "Your mom doesn't get it, but I'll take care of you." I nodded because what else could I do? My fingers ached under her grip. I felt smaller than I'd ever felt before, and all I could think was, Mom doesn't know where I am. Meanwhile, my mother was tearing through the town in panic. When she got home that night and found the house empty, she called every neighbor, every friend, even the police. She didn't know where Carla lived, but someone at the hospital mentioned spotting her car near an old apartment complex. By the time a patrol car pulled up outside, I was still trapped on that couch. Carla sitting beside me with a bottle in her hand. The knock on the door startled us both. Carla's eyes went wide. "Don't answer," she hissed. But the knocking grew louder. Then came the crash of the door breaking in. Officers flooded the room. Carla screamed, lunging at me, but rough hands pulled her back. "Stay away from her," she shrieked as they dragged her out in handcuffs. I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe. A female officer knelt in front of me, her voice gentle. "You're safe now, sweetheart. We've got you." My mom burst through the doorway moments later, her face streaked with tears. She pulled me into her arms, and I buried my face in her shoulder, shaking. Carla was charged with neglect, endangerment, and attempted kidnapping. I never saw her again, but the damage she left behind stayed with me for years. After that night, I was never the same. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every shadow stretched too long. I couldn't be left alone without feeling like Carla was somewhere nearby waiting. Even when Mom and I moved to a new home safer and brighter, I still dreamed of that apartment, the broken blinds, the yelling upstairs, Carla's grip on my hand. I never told anyone about the whispers, about how she swore there were voices in the walls, or how her laughter twisted into something darker when she said, "It's just us now." Those are the things that haunted me the most. Years passed, and I grew older, but part of me always stayed 9 years old in that apartment, learning the hard truth. Sometimes the people who smile at you, who are supposed to care for you, are the very ones you need to fear. And that's the memory I carry. Not a monster under the bed, not a shadow at the window, but a babysitter with painted nails and a crooked smile who came back when she shouldn't have. If there's a lesson in it, it's this. Trust your instincts. Even when you're young, when someone feels wrong, when their smile doesn't reach their eyes, listen to that voice inside you. It's not just paranoia, it's survival. Because evil doesn't always knock with a mask on. Sometimes it waves from the curb and tells you to hop in the car. If this story made your heart race, just remember, evil doesn't always knock with claws. Sometimes it waves from the curb and calls you by name. Subscribe to Nightling, where true horror wears a human face. Hit that bell before the next story finds you first. I still remember that February night in 2009 as if it's etched into my bones. Rockford was the kind of suburban place people pass through without thinking much about. A sprawl of aging ranch-style houses, cul-de-sacs, and corner stores that closed too early. It wasn't dangerous, not the way cities on the news were. At least that's what my parents used to say whenever I admitted I hated being left alone with babysitters. The truth was the house itself was what I feared. At night, every corner felt alive. The old furnace wheezed like it was breathing under the floorboards. The rafters creaked like footsteps pacing overhead, and the shadows always stretched just a little too far. My parents brushed it off as imagination, but I knew better. That night was supposed to be special for them, their anniversary. They'd booked a table at a nice restaurant downtown, one of the only times they treated themselves. My dad put on his old suit jacket. My mom wore a red dress, and they left the house buzzing with good spirits. Before walking out, Mom leaned down, kissed my forehead, and promised, "Sarah, it's just a few hours. Kelly will take care of you and Noah." Kelly was new to us, 17, tall with dark blonde hair. She kept tucked under a beanie, and a smile so quick it almost seemed rehearsed. She'd been recommended by a family friend who said she was responsible and sweet. Maybe she was, but from the moment she stepped into our house that evening, I noticed how her eyes kept darting toward the windows as if she expected something or someone to appear. At 12, I wasn't little anymore. I knew when an adult was nervous, no matter how hard they try to hide it. But Noah, at 6, was just happy someone would read him bedtime stories and pour too much syrup on his waffles. He took to Kelly immediately, and I envied that easy trust he had. The night settled slowly. Outside, snow drifted down, frosting the streets, making the whole neighborhood look like it was sealed inside a snow globe. Inside, Kelly dropped her backpack onto the couch, magazines and snacks spilling out, and said brightly, "Don't worry, I'll keep you guys safe." Her words should have comforted me. Instead, I felt a cold ripple move through me. Why say that unless she thought there was something to worry about? By 9 o'clock, Noah was asleep, curled under his dinosaur blanket, breathing softly. I stayed up in the living room with Kelly, watching a sitcom rerun on low volume. The house felt quieter than usual. Too quiet. I pulled the blanket tighter around me. That was when the power flickered. The screen blinked. The lights buzzed, then everything went black. Kelly laughed nervously. "Old houses, right?" she said, but her laugh didn't sound real. It was the kind of laugh you give when you're trying to cover fear. And then came the sound. A light, deliberate tap, tap, tap against the glass of the sliding back door. We both froze. At first, I told myself it had to be branches knocking against the glass or maybe snow falling from the roof. But then it came again. Talp, talp, talp. Perfectly even. Perfectly timed. Kelly grabbed the remote and muted the TV. The silence that followed pressed against my ears. The tapping stopped. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then came the crunch of footsteps in the snow just outside. Kelly whispered, probably just the wind, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. The way her hands shook slightly as she reached for her phone. She hadn't dialed anyone yet, just held it like a prop. I hugged my knees to my chest, staring at the sliding door. The yard beyond was empty, blanketed in white, the motion light glowing faintly. But I couldn't shake the feeling someone was out there just beyond the edges of the light watching. We waited. 10 minutes dragged by. I wanted to believe it was nothing, that maybe my mind had exaggerated it. I was almost ready to convince myself when another noise split the silence. This time it wasn't from outside. It came from the hallway. A slow, deliberate creak. The exact sound of the loose floorboard just outside my bedroom. Kelly stiffened. She forced a smile, her voice too bright. "Stay here. I'll check it out." I grabbed her wrist. "No, don't." My voice shook more than I wanted it to, but she pulled free, her face unreadable, and disappeared into the hallway. The shadows swallowed her whole. I sat there staring into the dark, the seconds stretching endlessly. Then I heard it, a soft laugh, but it wasn't Kelly's laugh. It was deeper male, coming from my bedroom. My whole body turned to ice. I knew I had to move. I tiptoed toward Noah's room, every step heavy with dread. My hand shook as I turned his doorknob. He was still asleep, his small face peaceful, unaware of the danger creeping just down the hall. I wanted to cry at the unfairness of it. How kids got to stay innocent while the world showed you its ugliness too early. I whispered his name. "Noah, wake up." He stirred, blinked, rubbed his eyes. "Sarah." "Shoo," I said, lifting him out of bed. His little arms wrapped around my neck. I tried to stay steady, but my heart hammered so loud I thought it might wake the whole house. That was when I saw it. In the reflection of the hallway mirror, I caught sight of movement. A man, tall and hooded, slipping silently out of my bedroom. My breath caught. Behind him, following close, was Kelly, and she was smiling, not the nervous, polite smile she'd shown us earlier. This smile was knowing, almost triumphant. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stop the scream that threatened to spill out. My babysitter, the girl who was supposed to protect us, had let him in. I didn't wait to see more. I turned, dragging Noah with me, and rushed down the hall into the bathroom. I slammed the door, locked it, and pressed my back against the wood, gasping for air. Noah started to cry. Confused and scared, I held him tight. "Shoo, please don't make a sound." A second later, Kelly's voice floated through the hall, sing-song and coaxing. "Sarah, don't be scared. He's just a friend. We won't hurt you if you come out." The door knob rattled slowly at first, then harder. Then came the banging, heavy, deliberate. Wood groaned under the force. I clutched Noah tighter. His tears soaked my shoulder. The only thing I could think over and over was, my parents have to come home. Please let them come home now. The pounding seemed endless. Each slam against the bathroom door vibrated through my chest, rattling my teeth. I pressed my body against the wood as though I could somehow keep it shut with sheer willpower. Noah whimpered, "Sarah, I'm scared." "I know," I whispered, stroking his hair. "I am too." The footsteps shifted outside, pacing back and forth. Kelly's voice came again, softer now, closer to a whisper. "You don't have to hide. We're not bad people. You'll understand if you just come out." Her words made my skin crawl. Time warped. Minutes felt like hours. Then suddenly, as quickly as it had started, the banging stopped. The house went silent again, except for the storm outside. I strained to listen. A creak, a shuffle, then nothing. And then headlights. The glow swept across the bathroom window, cutting through the dark. Tires crunched on the driveway. My heart leapt. My parents. The front door opened, voices calling out, muffled but real. My mother's laughter, my father's low tone. Relief surged through me so fast it made me dizzy. The intruder's footsteps pounded suddenly, retreating fast toward the back of the house. A door slammed open. By the time my parents rushed down the hall, throwing open the bathroom door, the house was silent again. Kelly and the man were gone. They never caught her. That was the worst part. The police came, combing through the house, noting the muddy footprints trailing out the back door, the abandoned backpack Kelly had left by the couch. But she and the man had vanished into the snowy night. My parents replaced the locks, installed cameras, and promise me nothing like it would ever happen again. But even at 12, I knew there were no guarantees. The world didn't hand you safety just because you were a kid. For weeks, I wedged a chair under my bedroom doorknob before sleeping. I carried a flashlight everywhere, even to the bathroom. Every creak of the floor made me jump. Every shadow felt like it was stretching toward me. Noah bounced back faster. Kids do, but I didn't. Not really. That night changed me. It wasn't just the man in the hallway or the sound of his laugh. It was Kelly's smile, that awful knowing smile, and the way she whispered that he was just a friend. Because the truth I learned that night is one I've carried ever since. Sometimes the danger isn't outside your house knocking at the door. Sometimes it's already sitting in your living room, smiling while your parents drive away. And if there's a lesson in that night, it's this. Be careful who you trust with your safety. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears a friendly face. If this story sent chills down your spine, there's more waiting in the dark. Subscribe to Nightling, where true horror hides behind familiar faces. Hit that bell before the next story finds you first.